So Tony Gilroy is back in the news for something that we feared, but he just confirmed that he won't be returning to Star Wars, explaining his reasoning clearly in a recent interview. And Katee Sackhoff said something very disturbing as well, because it seems like over there at Lucasfilm things are very much worse than we ever thought.
Hello there.
Hello there folks, and welcome to Star Wars Comics, where today we're going to discuss what is happening with Tony Gilroy. Is there any future for him in Star Wars again? And what is Kathleen Kennedy up to? What does the future for Star Wars actually look like? So we have a new article saying Andor creator never wants to make a show like Star Wars series ever again. So it's a new interview by The Hollywood Reporter. They discussed with Gilroy the immersive experience he had when making Andor. This is what he said in a nutshell, because it's pretty disappointing, and I was really disappointed in hearing him say this. Of course, there's a good sentiment as well, which I was glad to see, but you can kind of read between the lines that he is kind of done with Star Wars. And I think it's not because of the material, it's not because of the world, because as you can see here, he says, I grew to love it. So he loves Star Wars, but guess who he doesn't love? Yep, it's the management, it's the team over there. I mean, cancellation after cancellation. Like, we have other things to talk about, don't worry about it. Here's George R.R. Martin talking about how Andor Season 2 was the best series he has seen. We also have Mark Hamill revealing that he won't return to Star Wars, and as I said, Katee Sackhoff saying she has been playing Bo-Katan craze broke her, and after The Mandalorian she lost all of her confidence. This is disturbing news all around, but we're going to start with Tony Gilroy, of course, one of the main catalysts for Star Wars being back again. After Mandalorian Season 2, basically all of it went downhill, not to talk about the sequel trilogy, of course. So he said to The Hollywood Reporter, he said, I could see doing a limited series or something, but I can't see doing anything like that ever again. The 5.5 years, every single day of my life, I had maximally imaginative involvement that was never complete. Writing, designing, music, casting, all of it. Every demand on your imagination that you could ever be asked was screaming for your attention. That's pretty heady place to live. I grew to love it, but I can't imagine that I would ever be that fully engaged again. So you see, he's leaving the door ajar. He's not completely out, because he says I could see doing a limited series or something to that effect, and he says I grew to love it. But there is something that he's saying here because of how taxing it was. He is kind of saying that it took a lot out of him, essentially giving you the indication that yes, he was involved in everything, and that's why Andor became what it became. It's a cult classic. It's gonna be remembered, I think, for decades and decades to come. It's gonna be like the original trilogy, because I hear people like watching Andor, people that didn't even care about Star Wars before. Like, people want to see Andor just because it's a great series, not because it's a great Star Wars series. You know what I mean? Also, just a quick mention, I also just saw Mr. Plinkett's What Happened to Star Wars ? And he goes in detail in here, like he talks about it almost immediately, that it's the abundance, it's the corporatization of Star Wars and the never-ending struggle. But the guys literally talk about what we've been saying, that Andor was a great series in and of itself. It's just a great show that doesn't need the Star Wars IP. So imagine if, for example, this was my fantasy all along, and I'm going to reveal it right here. My fantasy was that one day, Tony Gilroy could possibly make a KOTOR series. He is by far the only person that can really do that, because as we talked about, like, KOTOR has the perfect setting for like a Tony Gilroy type of series. This side would be perfect. 4,000 years ago, you have two empires. You can have the feeling of George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones, where you have great houses that would, of course, come into effect with the Republic, the Jedi Order, the Empire, the Sith Order, the Hutt Cartel that existed even back then, Outer Rim, criminal syndicates. You can have all of these houses intertwined, fighting against each other. You can show a different side of the Jedi Order 4,000 years ago. So it wasn't this Jedi Order that is so preoccupied with the semantics of everything. But apparently there's another reason why Tony Gilroy is kind of out, because Tony Gilroy says was right, Disney Plus is broke and now people are paying the price. So about a month ago, Tony Tony Gilroy says here didn't hold back. While speaking to Making the Andor, he exposed just how much Disney spent and how quickly things changed behind the scenes. And this is kind of what I've been saying. This is the whole crux of the issue. In this interview, he's not telling all. He's saying that he is tired, but here we have kind of a different version. He says, I mean, for Disney, this is $650 million. For 24 episodes, I never took a note. We said, F the Empire in the first season. They said, can you please not do that? In season 2, they said, streaming is dead. We don't have the money we had before. So we fought hard about money, but they never cleaned anything up. That freedom comes with responsibilities. So Lucasfilm clearly here acknowledges the genius that is Tony Gilroy, but then behind the scenes, you have to understand how hard it is for you to want to do a set piece, for example. Think about the Gorman Massacre. Think about what if they didn't have the budget for that set piece. It wouldn't have that deep feeling that it had. I think that at the end of the day, this is why Tony Gilroy is saying this. He's saying that I could probably do a limited series or something, not 2 seasons like I did with Andor, and that's kind of sad to hear, honestly. Who here would love a KOTOR series with Tony Gilroy at the helm? Fuck it, with George R.R. Martin as a consultant, same as he was in Game of Thrones. Factions battling each other 4,000 years ago. The Sith are not hiding 4,000 years ago. They have a Sith empire fighting the Jedi Order, fighting the Republic, and you have criminal syndicates and Hutt cartels, and who knows, you can even do cultists, and you can do all sorts of stuff 4,000 years ago. It's a new canon. So you have the freedom to do that, and you're not bogged down by legend material, which KOTOR right now is. But outside of Tony Gilroy, as we've talked about, like he wants to move on from Star Wars and do other things, and hopefully one day we can see him back. This is another terrible news. Katee Sackhoff, in her podcast just recently, said that playing Bo-Katan Kryze broke her, and her career just took a nosedive. And here's an even detailed response. So she says, I lost all of my confidence after Mandalorian. My style of acting has always just been your first instinct is the right instinct. Do that. Play the reality of the situation. I've never really played a character. Do you know what I mean? I've always played 2 steps removed from myself, in a sense. She's talking about Bo-Katan Kryze. She's talking about before she used to just go all ham and play the character as it was written. But with Bo-Katan, because of Lucasfilm's restrictions and because of how, the character needs to be tied up, how they think it should be, she doesn't have the freedom to play like she wants to play it. And she says, I've always played 2 steps removed from myself. It always felt grounded in some part of my belly of who I was. Bo-Katan is nowhere near who I am as a human being. Her life, what she wants, I didn't understand her. As much as I understand her, I never felt her in my stomach. I never identified with her. I don't know how to find her. It broke me. It just broke me where I started doubting everything about myself. It's not a strong auditioner on tape, and I was having to put myself on tape. I wasn't booking anything, and for 3 years, I basically didn't work. So, yeah, really sad to hear. And here's your thing. Here's why many Star Wars projects are being canceled. Because I think outside of Tony Gilroy, which clearly he himself said he didn't have creative issues, he had a problem with how Disney was budgeting these series. They wanted to go a different direction. And this is why. But in this case, she's saying about how restricted the character is and how as an actress, she can't do what she wants to do, really. And it's hampering her acting style. To this effect, of course, we heard also Mark Hamill reveals why he won't return for Star Wars 10, meaning the next trilogy, which I gotta say, Mark, it's not happening. Like, it's not going to happen. There's so much, like, we discussed recently about Marvel and DC and how Bob Iger and what he said. If you haven't heard it, this is what Bob Iger literally said just a week ago. And you can take that as you would for Star Wars as well. He was talking about Fantastic Four and Marvel, but it's Disney. It falls under the same umbrella. Alright, so Bob Iger just recently came out in regards to the Fantastic Four movie and it not doing so well. He was kind of forced to come out and say, the more we can find and develop original property, the better. Of course, we are developing original property under the 20th Century banner and under the Searchlight banner, and look, you could even argue that Marvel continues to mine its library of characters for original property, even though for instance, there have been Fantastic Four movies before, we kind of consider the one we did an original property in many respects because we're introducing these characters to the people who are unfamiliar with them. Fantastic Four First Steps successfully launched this important franchise into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Classic Bob Iger, baby, a nothing burger. He didn't really say a lot, but if you read between the lines, this is what he is saying. So the Fantastic Four First Steps did. He is right. It did successfully launch. As I said in the beginning of the video, this is an illusion. What is happening now is that these are no longer pop culture movies, and we're getting to the basics of the problem. I don't think they can ever go back to that because the leadership lacks in imagination and they can't understand what the problem is. Why aren't people flocking to it? Marvel movies and Star Wars movies especially have completely lost their mojo. It's gonna be really interesting to see what Dave Filoni does with the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, because let's not forget, in 2026, when Mandalorian and Grogu comes out, it's gonna be, since 2019, it's gonna be 7 years since the Star Wars movie was released. If we compare Revenge of the Sith, for example, with The Force Awakens, that's 10 years, from 2005 to 2015. It's kind of there, it's kind of in that area. Not 10 years, but 7 years is a good enough gap with no movies in the theater. So let's see what The Mandalorian and Grogu does before we judge what Star Wars come back. The problem is that even if The Mandalorian and Grogu comes out, Kathleen Kennedy being still there, she is planning to do all sorts of non sequitur movies. Movies that go back 25,000 years at the beginning of the Jedi Order, while Dave Filoni is making movies after Return of the Jedi. It's completely baffling to me how there's no connectivity. It's just a mishmash of movies. Whoever wants to come and do whatever they like, and this is my frustration right now. But I think this idea might have finally been scrapped thanks to Bob Iger coming out and literally acknowledging a kind of a stumbling. He is trying to save face, saying that there have been Fantastic Four movies in the past. Maybe that's why this was a successful launch, but it's not going to be the biggest Marvel movie in the franchise. The problem is he knows, he sees the writing on the wall. First weekend, everybody's going to go and see it. The fandom, the real fans. And then nobody's going to go watch because you need the regular dude, the regular people, the people who are not crazy fans but will just go watch a movie because it's funny, it's interesting. This is why Deadpool and Wolverine worked. It's because Deadpool is a hilarious character to the normies. You have fans and you have normies flocking together. Wolverine, a classic character. Since decades and decades, people know about it. Hugh Jackman coming back to play Wolverine again. So two classic characters coming back in a hilarious kind of action comedy, and it just serves the normies more so than the fans. You have something for the fans and something for the normies. This is how you get the big bucks. And by what I've read, what Dave Filoni has said about The Mandalorian and Grogu, I think he is going back to that. He is going back to the classics, where it isn't just about lore and just ultimate fans coming to watch the movie, knowing everything, how it connects to the universe, but it's just going to be also about regular folk that come into the cinema, enjoy the movie, go out and say, okay, that was fun, that was a good movie. Word of mouth will spread, more people will flock to it, come watch it, and that's how it goes. If you watch the Fantastic Four, it's a good movie, but most of these movies now have become bland. The problem with it is, first of all, the retro look has become boring. So in the Fantastic Four, for me, the retro look was good and thought of, but it is already played out to such a humongous level that it's become boring. Then you have Galactus, then you have the Silver Surfer, then you have Franklin Richards, Sue's kid. So there's so much, they're throwing so much at you, and the post-credit scene is literally Doctor Doom getting his face healed by Franklin Richards. So there's so much into it that normies are just gonna go, huh? What? So they're not gonna get it. This is, I feel, how they lost their track and lost their path. I had the same problem with Superman. Superman is a classic tale. It's a great movie. You should go watch it. It's a refreshing restart. James Gunn did a good job. My problem with it, of course, there's a myriad of characters. Good guys, anti-heroes, bad guys. There's so much to keep track of. I feel the frustration. I literally do. When I talk to regular folk, I'm a big, huge nerd. I have a channel called Star Wars Comics. I talk about Star Wars comics, let alone the Star Wars movies and TV shows. I talk about comics, but I have my ear to the ground. I talk to other people, and I know how they feel. I'm gonna go watch a Star Wars movie. That's a given. But is my cousin, who knows very little about Star Wars, gonna go watch a new Jedi Order movie with Rey in it? I'm thinking no. That's a big, huge no. And this is why Bob Iger coming out with this statement, giving a signal clear to Kathleen Kennedy, who did not announce anything in Star Wars Celebration, gives you kind of the clear view, the clear path to think that these other projects have been slowly shelved, as with many, many other projects. This is why Rian Johnson came out a couple of months ago and told that, no, the trilogy is not going forward. We talked about it. There was some... Previously, he had said that they were working on it. They were excited. There was going to be scripts. Now he said, no, there weren't any scripts. They were just talking and ideas floating around. With the Fantastic Four not recouping the money they wanted to make in the box office, and Superman kind of not getting there too, the writing is in the wall, guys. They know that if they go forward with crazy ideas for Star Wars movies, it's not gonna work. I am in the belief that Mandalorian and Grogu is gonna do fine, it's gonna do great. I can't promise that it's gonna make $1 billion, but I think it's gonna be high up there. A movie, two beloved characters, two original beloved characters in a Star Wars movie after 7 years is good enough for you to have a good box office return. Perhaps not $1 billion, but at $800 or $900 million. I think that's what Mandalorian and Grogu is gonna land. Trust me, when winter will approach, the marketing will be so heavy for that movie. We're gonna get trailers, we're gonna get footage, everything. But Bob Iger has made it clear. We need to be wary of new, fresh, ludicrous ideas, out there ideas to just experiment with $250 million projects. We don't have the money and the time, and especially if Dave Filoni is successful with The Mandalorian and Grogu, Bob Iger is just gonna scrap those ideas from the top. There's not gonna be a Kimberg trilogy or a New Jedi Order, anything like that. They want to remain with the classics. It's gonna be Mandalorian, Grogu 2, the Thrawn thing, Luke Skywalker perhaps returning to the silver screen again. Imagine how exciting that would be, and why Kathleen Kennedy hasn't done it in freaking 15 years. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. Luke Skywalker, I'm talking about a prime Luke Skywalker, mind you, not a decrepit sequel trilogy Luke Skywalker, but what do I know? I've been a Star Wars fan since I was a kid, and Kathleen Kennedy is a billionaire CEO, so good thinking. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm gonna see you soon, but until then, may the Force be with you.